Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good Sunday evening. It is the Earthmaster back here at this end of the weekend, April 16th, 2023. It's about 10:14 p.m. here along the west coast here in California. Latest earthquake activity looks to be a 2.1 here in the area of Turkey. The latest earthquake activity there listed on the map. So what do we got going on here? Let's go ahead and back out of here. Show you guys an overview of Yellowstone National Park. Look at this significant earthquake swarm going on here. Centered around, well, I think the epicenter of this earthquake activity is centered around Little West Thumb and the Grant Village area, showing some significant earthquake activity here at Yellowstone Supervolcano. And the caldera, so to speak here, the Yellowstone Supervolcano caldera, is around this black outline. And this earthquake activity centered within that region. So look at that. That's all I have to say. Look at that earthquake activity. That's a lot of earthquake activity. Very small earthquake activity. It doesn't look like there's anything too strong going on here at Yellowstone National Park. It looks to be, I'm guessing probably below 2.5 on the magnitude. It is showing up across a good portion of the southern end of the Yellowstone region. That includes areas around Idaho as well. Notice a little bit of activity kicking up there as well. But the epicenter roughly around the Grant Village area. And I am not going to count every single one of these earthquakes, but there's probably well over 100, maybe 200 earthquakes here in the last 12, 18 hours or so. And this earthquake activity kind of came about following an unusual signature here in Yellowstone that kicked off on the 15th. So we're looking at 15th of yesterday, so to speak. And the signature I'm talking about is this unusual blurp, or I don't know. I look at it and tend to think that this is maybe some type of magma intrusion there at Yellowstone, but I can't be certain. But it could also be a lot of earthquake activity in a short amount of time there, centered around the Grant Village area. And again, this was yesterday. It kicked off this earthquake swarm. Looking at the activity again today shows definitely elevated conditions here across the center portion of the Yellowstone super volcano area. And that's a lot of earthquake activity, folks. This is a recorded seismograph station here, and this picks up earthquake activity. It should technically, when there's no earthquake activity, look like a clear line, but goodness, if you want to go about and count how many earthquakes are there listed on the graph, you're probably well over 200 or so being reported there at Yellowstone National Park. There is no earthquake activity being reported by the USGS up here at Yellowstone. So, but that's not surprising. It is the weekend, and the USGS really does not chime in on these earthquake swarms until they get paid, right? Clock in Monday morning, cha-ching, taxpayer money coming in. Okay, let's report this activity. So that's what's going on there. With the lack of reporting, we'll see what these guys come up with Monday morning as far as the USGS reporting the earthquake activity. So they got a job to do, and they are paid by me. Technically, they are paid by me. They're paid by you. They're paid by anyone that pays into the tax system of this country. The United States have obviously a tax system here, and the government runs off of the public. So I have a right to say that, no doubt. So let's get with it, USGS. Let's report what's going on there. with the earthquake swarm there in Yellowstone. And it's a pretty significant one. Definitely, it's lighting up like crazy. Pretty impressive. A lot of red and blue spikes out there. All right, let's see what else is occurring out here across the area of the Pacific Northwest. A couple smaller earthquake activity events up into Washington, Northern California. Got one earthquake here. I'm kind of watching here within this. Yeah, it kind of came in this earlier afternoon time period at 2.4, 17 kilometers deep here around the. This is called the Rust Fault Zone, but technically it's in relation to the Cascadia subduction zone here at the southern end of this segment. A quick glance here at the epicenters of tremor. Okay, if you've been following the Cascadia tremor, this is today's activity. 557 epicenters of tremor, again situated around the Seattle area and the Vancouver Island Ranges area. Also a little bit of activity into the southern Oregon region. Excuse me. So still elevated tremor activity kicking up here. Notice the spike on the globe getting much higher. Or not on the globe, but on the graph here. Indicating that significant tremor uptick here along the Cascadia subduction zone. I expect this again to continue at least for probably the next week or so before it calms down. Pending we don't get any mega quake out here along the Cascadia. As always, there's that elevated chance of seeing a Cascadia mega quake with the elevated tremor event. A little bit of movement here across the coastal range here of Northern California. Bay Area awfully quiet. The rest of California down south, very minimal earthquake activity in the southern portion of the state. We did have one earthquake here into the Mina, Nevada area early this morning. A 3.3 coming in there, about 7.4 kilometers deep, 8 o'clock in the morning. No significant further activity here across the North American continent. And if you look up here to the Alaska area, things very minimal as well. We got the latest earthquake at 2.1 near Petersville, Alaska, 104 kilometers below this area. Let's see what we got here along the Kuro-Kamchatka Trench. Roughly the same that we've seen this morning. We're still watching some activity here around the Java Trench down south, as listed here on the Earthquake 3D program. Seems as though things have come to a halt here across the middle section of the Java Trench. That could be a fairly good indicator of some further large-scale momentum of the pressure gradients here across this area of the Java Trench, working its way towards the northwest along this plate boundary. So we'll watch that pretty closely for some potential larger scale movement. That includes a 4.8 in the last hour into the Java, Indonesia area. This earthquake occurring 35 kilometers deep upstream from where we've seen that large 7-pointer here a couple days ago. Much further into the Java Trench area underneath the Java Sea area. That was a pretty large earthquake there, but it was almost 600 kilometers deep. So watch this area for some potential larger scale movement upstream. Around the Middle East and the Turkey area, mostly it looks like some 3s and 4s out there in the region today. Not seeing anything significant. The Atlantic Ocean fairly quiet. We have been watching some pretty good uptick here across the Caribbean plate. That includes areas around St. John's, the Barbuda area, St. Martin area, Dominica. This is a major subduction zone out here that can see some significant earthquakes. These folks out here that are living, or tourists out here around the Dominica area, hopefully are advised of what the potential is out here along these islands. This is, obviously some beautiful area if you're visiting the region, but there's a reason why this is so beautiful. It sits about a major subduction zone, and the stresses out here in terms of major potential is very high. We're talking about mid 8.5 range or so in terms of earthquake activity within this region. So, sometimes beauty has its danger. And we're seeing elevated earthquake activity here across the last 24 hours within this eastern section of the Caribbean plate. Last earthquake looks like a 4.3 into the looks like Costa Rica area, not showing up here across the USGS map, but more so on the EMSC model. See that 4.3 down there into the Costa Rica area. Definitely some broad scale earthquake activity across the region, but USGS definitely not reporting on it whatsoever across the area. South America, according to the USGS, there's nothing going on, but we know that's not a fact. Looks like a couple twos going on down there, but relatively quiet, though, in terms of any type of earthquake activity across the Peru-Chile Trench. All right, let's see what else we got here. The Big Island of Hawaii, most of the movement here across the Pahala area. The Kilauea volcano definitely has been showing some movement here. Relatively, somewhat deep for this area, down to about 3 kilometers or so for some of this earthquake activity. That could indicate potentially for some magma movement across the Kilauea volcano. Currently, it's still not erupting. There has not been any type of notification system sent out here from the HVO. The last update was a few days ago, as noted here. Only a weekly update from about 5 days ago. So, kind of watching that. We'll see how it plays out, right? Watching for some of that deeper movement. Alrighty, space weather activity, folks. Space weather. Let's look at the space weather. What's going on with space weather? Is there thunderstorms going on out there in the sun? Probably not. But we are looking at quite a bit of sunspot activity. Numerous sunspots here on the Earth-facing side of the sun. This sunspot I was watching here over the last couple days has, kind of distanced itself here in the cores of the magnetic structure here. It doesn't look like it's going to be much of a threat here in the coming days, as you got the separation of the blue and the red. That's not good if you want to look at some solar flaring. And for the most part, a lot of these sunspots here on the Earth-facing side of the sun have stabilized and are no longer active in terms of producing any major flaring. Even this regional sunspot down here to the south, no longer, at least looking at this current magnetic structure, no longer pose any major threat. It's a little disappointing, to say the least. There's still the southwestern section of the sun here with that former sunspot drifting away from the Earth side here. That does harbor a little potential for some elevated flaring, but overall, the majority of these sunspots are very disappointing. They've rapidly progressed to a neutral state. Right now, there's still 99% chance for a C flare, M flare at 50, 10% chance for an X flare, but I don't think it's likely. Looking at the current popcorn in the solar flux index here, not a whole lot of activity kicking up. Some very minor C flare activity, but looking at the UV filter, shows roughly about the same. All stable conditions here on the disk or Earth-facing side here of the sun, and that's unfortunate because I kind of want to see a significant flare pop off here. These sunspots, they can be, technically they can be a quarter size of the sun here. Say, for example, 3282 took up a quarter section of the sun. If this polarity, the magnetic structure, is not dynamic and closely within each other, then we're not looking at any major potential for any flaring. This 3282 is a prime example of how sunspot activity can grow very closely together and then migrate separately to prevent flaring, to prevent the instability, the unstable activity there that we would expect from a very active solar flare region. So 3082 has some visible sunspots, but they have since separated and no longer pose a significant threat for any solar flaring for now. Look at the coronal hole map, shows that as well. There's a bright region on the northeastern section of the sun that we're watching pretty closely in the coming days. We'll get a little bit better look at that here soon. Coronal hole number 94 on the southern disk of the sun does not pose any threat. It's a beautiful, it's a beautiful image here looking at this solar feature of the sun. And, I could sit here with the zoom feature all day long and just, be mesmerized by the features here on the sun. Obviously, we can't see that here on planet Earth. Definitely don't want to look at the sun to attempt this. But with the right filters, the right cameras and telescopes, one can see this activity. And it's more dynamic than what we're seeing here from the surface of the Earth. All right, numerous sunspots as listed, but again, we are a little bit elevated here on those current solar flare threats. From my observations, these are a little bit bloated, but we will continue to watch some areas on the northeastern section here of the sun, as it does harbor some potential for some elevated conditions. Looks like we have at least one here on the northeastern section, one center disk on the eastern limb of the sun. That is noteworthy here, hopefully in the coming days. No major solar flare or no major weather activity coming up here, folks. Looking at West Coast activity, I want to bring up the West Coast weather. And, it hit 75 degrees today. We are looking at a little bit cooler temperatures here coming in for tomorrow in Northern California and Oregon and Washington as well, with some low elevation snow. So kind of a cold snap here in the middle of April. I don't see any major storms hitting the West Coast. I don't see any major heat waves coming in either. Our most impactful weather system looks to be around the 29th of April, but this is a ways out. It does show a cold front here coming into the West Coast with a little bit of precipitation for Northern California. But far as any major weather patterns go, I am not seeing it. And we can go to the regions here across the North America area and go to the Assemble, the GEPS system. And the low pressure system obviously is a cooler, unsettled conditions there that bring about unsettled weather. High pressure, is going to be in the red areas. So this is right now. Now it looks like hiccups. Okay, who's got a voodoo doll of me? Giving me hiccups out here. Come on now. Let's not do that. That's not very nice. There's our low pressure system coming in into the West Coast area towards the beginning of next week, middle of next week. But there's not a lot of precipitation or moisture associated with the storm system, but cooler weather definitely involved. And extending out here into the end of April, I'm not seeing any significant weather patterns taking shape out here. Fairly neutral for May. Goodness, look at May. May 2nd, where there's no major high pressure system out here across the West Coast. No ridging. Things look fairly neutral. So this is rather an odd spring. We are transitioning into an El Nino pattern And that includes warmer environments out there in the ocean, the Pacific Ocean for one. We'll cover that a little bit later on in a more detailed update. But yeah, it's a rather unusual weather pattern that we're seeing stretching out here this far into May. Goodness. All right, well, what else do we got, folks? Congratulations there to the member drawing that I held earlier. So if you didn't get a chance to watch the member-only drawing, it is live on the channel for all subscribers, obviously. And, well, I'm somewhat generous. I decided to pick out a second winner in the drawing that I held today. So we had two members that I picked out there of the fishbowl. If you didn't catch it, don't know who won, go check it out. It's up there on the channel. Congratulations to those members. What do we got here on the graph here? Yellowstone. Hello, Yellowstone. So Yellowstone National Park there. Let me bounce out here real quick again, show you guys what's going on. Stand by for a second. All right, so Yellowstone National Park here. Check out that signature. That is at Lake Yellowstone. So earthquake activity still continuing within this earthquake swarm that we're seeing. That's a pretty significant swarm, folks. I'm not even going to lie. That is not a huge event, but that's a large multitude of earthquakes there at Yellowstone. And again, I believe these are all below 2.5 on the threshold, but it's numerous. And this is not no ice quake event. This is not snow melt. This is earthquake activity occurring there at Yellowstone National Park, and it all got triggered a day or so ago with this unusual signature that I seen there. Oh man, what do we got? Hold on, we got a lot of activity kicking up here as I'm about to end the video. 3.4 ocean, Hawaii ocean view, 42 kilometers deep underneath the Pacific Plate. Automatic status, so it looks like it may be reviewed, but it looks as though a good portion of the southwestern edge of Hawaii reported feeling that. Some light shaking going on out there. All right, folks, best thing to do is be prepared. And obviously some times of uncertainty, right? Uncertainty at its best. All right, guys. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime. Again, I wish I could pull out every single name out of that fishbowl and say congratulations to everyone out there, because obviously we do have quite a few members out here that have joined the channel, and I would love to see everyone win, but I'm not in that position to give everyone that winning prize. So, but I kind of felt it. I kind of felt that generosity today in giving out two member-only notifications there. So, pulled out two lucky winners from the fishbowl. Again, I wish I could see everyone win. If I had it my way, I would obviously be giving away prizes to every single member out here, but I can't do it right now. I just can't. Hopefully in the future I will. But for now, congratulations to the two members that I did pull out of the fishbowl. And they're entitled to a $50 Visa, MasterCard, gift card, etc. Or otherwise, some other prizes noted in the giveaway video. We are coming up very close here to the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. It'll probably take place here soon. The way the channel is growing, I'm guessing probably by middle of summer is when we'll be giving away the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. And that's going to be a big one here, folks, to all subscribers. You don't have to be a member on the channel to win or enter into that drawing. But we'll go more into that as we get closer to that 100,000 subscriber level. Alrighty, guys. Have a good night. Please stay safe out there, and the best thing to do is be prepared. And make sure you guys have an earthquake plan out there. Stay safe, everyone.